Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Samueli. With me, of course, is the co-host, co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, and we're here. It's 10 a.m. on the East Coast of the United States. All technical issues resolved, which means no one has any excuse to make that extra cup of coffee, get that pencil, do your daily chores. No, that's it. Now is the time to focus, put that coffee pot down, and it is now time for our weekly joint live stream. I don't know what we're going to talk about today because
Oh,
there's so little going on that it kind of, is just racking my brains. What are we going to talk about?
yeah. I
Maybe we
mean,
can talk
this.
about sport, or some, latest fashion trends.
I can always talk about dog care.
Yeah, dogs. Yeah, there's just nothing going on. But anyway,
In
seeing
lieu
that,
of that, in lieu of
yes,
that.
in lieu of that, we can discuss the ever burgeoning, ever escalating crisis in the Middle East. Now, it clearly does seem, on the face of it, we've just watched the rather testy, unimpressive news conference delivered by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who didn't seem to be able to answer any of the questions proffered him. Certainly, that the United States, in the personage of President Trump, haven't really given any explanation for why they did this or what their way forward is. And obviously, this crisis is developing, at a much more rapid pace than anyone could have anticipated.
Yeah,
Oh,
and it's going in one direction,
it's going
George.
in one direction, but though one should say that Iran did promise that its response would not be moderate. I mean, in other words, they actually said many times that we will not be restrained in how we respond. In other words, we're not going to do what we did last June when we took the hit and only delivered a relatively restrained response. So that's not what's happening now. So it's clearly that Iran has made the decision to go all in, and therefore it's already drawing in a number of other countries. It's drawing in all of the Gulf states, and of course, it has also drawn in the European states. And Iran clearly isn't prepared to back down, at least not for the time being.
Yeah, well, from what we hear, and I suppose there's a number of sources reporting it, that the U.S. used the so-called good services of the Italians to reach out. Hey, you want to talk? No, not to you, not now, maybe not never. Who knows? Um, I only saw a clip of Pete Hegseth. This guy, he should go to prison eventually. Okay, I'm serious. I mean, there has to be some kind of accountability. I did notice, I'm sure everyone else did too, that no major administration figure came out during the weekend at all.
Right.
Okay, they have their surrogates speaking, babble on the Sunday shows.
Right.
Um, I watched a little bit of that. I mean, when they start their barrage of lies, you just enough. I already know what you're going to say. I'm
Right.
not interested
Right.
in it. Okay, so I mean, as George has pointed out, there's a cascade effect going all across the region here, and I think a lot of people. And maybe with good reason, think that the Iranians would be putting all their focus on Israel. No, they're putting their focus on the Gulf. That's
They
their
think they think.
first line of business. I don't know how many of you saw the footage of the Aramco explosion.
Well, I
That's
want to get into that. We'll talk about the separately, the energy situation.
well,
Um,
I mean, George. I mean, as fantastic as this may sound, the Iranians want the Americans out of the Gulf. Okay.
right, right. No, that's right. But the problem now, for Trump, that this is an escalating crisis, and it's an escalating crisis of his own making.
Yes.
And he's now giving interview after interview to various newspapers, each one about 5 minutes, and I think he's leaving his interlocutors a little baffled because they just don't quite understand what the goal is. He keeps babbling on about Venezuela, Venezuela this, Rodriguez and Maduro. Yeah, but this isn't Venezuela. I mean, is that your model? That's what you were working on, that this is going to be a replica of Venezuela? That doesn't seem like very good strategic thinking. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, the assassination of the supreme leader. I think they have grossly underestimated how how much of a mistake that was. I mean, the reports are coming out now. For me, credible. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't in a
Yeah.
cave. He was at work at his modest desk in his modest house. And
No, I think
again,
that's what, like, that's a religious teacher. A religious teacher is going to say,
there you go,
I'm not hiding out. Not going to hide anywhere. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so, presumably, I mean, and again, it's a mindset that the secular West can't understand. Is that he understood it? I said it was 89. I'm mistaken yesterday. 86. Infirmed, could barely walk, and he resigned himself to his fate that he would become a martyr for his country and his revolution. And he took it, and how you and I talked about it yesterday. It's this morbid gleefulness out of
Right.
Western commentators. It's just so bizarre. I mean, it was 86-year-old man.
Well, that's the point. I mean, you kill somebody who's 86. This is somebody who could go at any moment. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
it's like I mean, so you haven't really accomplished very much. I mean, hitting the rest of the top military and security and intelligence, yeah, that, I mean, that is effective, and they accomplished that. But so far, we haven't seen any evidence that this has hurt Iran's response. Maybe it has, but so far Iran is able to respond. And of course, there's the other question, and we're going to come to that a little bit, is how much intelligence help is Iran receiving from Russia? Because
Mhm.
it's not beyond the bounds of possibility that Russia is doing to Iran what the United States has been doing for Ukraine, namely providing intelligence, target
Karma,
information,
karma,
and
man,
yeah,
karma.
yeah, yeah, and not just targeting information, how to avoid the air defenses, so that you're able to hit the targets just as they were doing for Ukraine. So that could still be on the cards.
Well,
Um,
George,
yeah,
since you've mentioned it, I mean, let me think. What country in the world has the most experience doing that over the last 4 years? Not
yeah.
hard to guess,
No, no,
everyone.
no,
So that kind of expertise and intelligence is invaluable right now.
that's right. But I want to come to that because Putin held two conversations today with the leaders of Qatar and the UAE, and they were quite interesting because obviously it was the leader of Qatar and UAE who initiated this call in the hope that Putin will intercede on their behalf and entreat Iran to call it off. And Putin really wasn't having any of that. So, have a friendly, courteous conversation, and then he says, "I will relay your message, and but let's talk again." So,
Yeah, but
we I'm backing you.
if I had been on the call and George was with me on the call, we probably would have said in unison, "Why don't you talk to the guy that started this?"
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Anyway, here is um, where are we? That, yeah. This is the message from Larijani, who probably is running things in Iran at the moment.
Looks like.
He says
Okay,
Trump's.
everybody, I need to jump in. I'm using my iPad right now. I have my monocle, so don't, I'm because it's almost impossible for me to read. This may help. So go ahead, George.
Right. So Trump's wishful thinking has dragged the whole region into an unnecessary war, and now he's rightly worried about more American casualties. So one should say that the Americans have confirmed three deaths in Kuwait. So that those are confirmed deaths. And then it is indeed very sad that he's sacrificing American treasure and blood to advance Netanyahu's illegitimate expansionist ambitions. And then he goes on, Iran, unlike the United States, has prepared itself for a long war. And then he has this thing, as in the past 300 years, Iran did not start this war, and our brave armed forces have not engaged in any attacks except in defense. We will fiercely defend ourselves and our 6,000 years old civilization, regardless of the costs, and will make the enemies sorry for their miscalculation. Now,
Well, that's one way of putting it. I mean, if you're on the receiving end of Iranian bombs and artillery in the Gulf, you're going to feel a little bit differently. That's what it's getting really sticky, everybody, right now, because as George and I pointed out yesterday, well, Qatar and the UAE, hey, why are you hitting us? Well, we're only hitting American bases. We
right with
see
this,
American bases as American territory, but they're in your country.
they're in your country,
Yeah,
and yeah, and there may be civilian targets hit. I mean, that goes with the territory. I mean, that goes with war. Very nasty, very unpleasant, but that happens.
and
Every
after
time
all,
you
you
have a base on your territory, it is going to happen that civilians are going to get hurt. So
well, you invited
you
these
pay the
bases
price.
onto, you invited these bases
Right,
onto your country,
right,
okay? And that country has started a war.
right. Um, and then it goes on here. That, so this is the story, which is, I mean, you talked about asking the Italians to act as interlocutors, but this was also confirmed by Trita Parsi. I think who's well connected, that the U.S. has been pressing Iran for a ceasefire, and Iran has rejected calls for a ceasefire. Just kind of extraordinary, really. But that that, and again, it's Trita
I don't
Parsi.
know, George. What do we do next?
That's
Okay,
right.
I mean, this is a blunder of, we
Right.
always talk about the 2003 invasion of Iraq as a blunder. This is infinitely far worse.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The killing of Iran's supreme leader is a major intelligence and military feat, but Tehran's this is an Israeli news agency, so that's you can see that major intelligence and military feat. But Tehran's regime has not collapsed. U.S. official via mediator proposed an immediate ceasefire. Iran rejected it outright as Trump looks for a quick exit. And then on the eve of the strike in Iran, U.S. officials envisioned a 4 to 5 day operation that would return a weakened Tehran to the negotiating table. According to one source, an American official conveyed an even more immediate proposal through a mediator, apparently Italy. He suggested reaching a ceasefire agreement today or tomorrow. Iran rejected the idea outright. Um, and now here, this is what the very interesting. So we already have this the effective blockage of the Strait of Hormuz, and but this is going much beyond that, because we're now the attack on Qatar, and of course Aramco, and so this is this is obviously having a major effect on energy prices throughout the world. So here's it says oil prices rose 13% to above $82 a barrel, and as the highest, and as the tensions halted shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, through which a fifth of global oil supply flows. And then, amid the escalating war, Qatar has halted the production of LNG, and Saudi Arabia shut its biggest domestic oil refinery.
Well, why don't you chew on that, Ursula von der Leyen?
Von der
Chew on
Leyen. It's very good that you mentioned that, because, of course, von der Leyen and Metzola and Kaya Kallas only last week were celebrating, we have cut ourselves off from Russian oil forever. We will never, never, never buy Russian oil again. Well, that's a
Yeah,
good. That was a good move.
yeah. That's like having performing a amputation on your own leg in public. Good for you.
Good
Okay,
for
you
you.
did it.
That's right.
It's your self harm. That's your business. Okay, great.
Yeah. No, that's right. And of course, they also cut themselves off from Russian gas. That was a week before when they proud that we're never going to import Russian gas again.
Well,
So
the Russians weren't forcing you to buy it. Okay, I just don't understand the bravado here.
yes,
Okay,
yes, that's right.
I
It is
just
this
don't.
bravado, and he said, "Well, that's fantastic." And where are you going to get your energy from?
Kuwait,
Particularly,
Kuwait. Oh,
oh,
no, oh,
but particularly given the most obvious point, which is that we're all becoming now ever dependent on AI. AI uses up an awful lot of energy. So wind and and sun are not going to do it. Where are you going to get your energy to power your AI? You need lots and lots and lots of fossil fuels. You
yeah.
you gambled everything on getting it from the Americans, who are obviously going to force you to pay a pretty penny. But now with all this, the prices are just going to absolutely skyrocket.
It's really truly amazing. And you and I have been around these people all our lives. This anti-fossil fuel
Right.
ringleaders around us, and just when you need more energy, you
Right.
need more fossil fuel. I mean, just
That's right.
and that's why it's almost impossible to have a conversation with these people because you've completely successfully divorced yourself from reality.
Right.
Go ahead, put on your loincloth and dance in the forest. Okay, knock yourself out.
Well, and with also this spike in oil prices, well, that kind of undermined all your
Oh
plans
yeah.
for forcing Russia into
So, so
into bankruptcy
yeah, maybe we should
and
give the
debt
Kremlin a
because, oh,
call.
we're going to have oil prices will be $40 a barrel. Well, that's a
That's
problem. Yeah.
well. Let's call the Kremlin and say, hey, what are you going to do with the extra money? Huh? Huh? Boomerang again,
Yes.
again,
Yes.
again.
Um, and anyway, this goes on. Apart from that, oil production has been halted in Iraqi Kurdistan and several major Israeli gas fields, putting exports to Egypt to a standstill. The tensions continue to escalate on the third day of the conflict, with explosions rocking Tehran and in Iran, attacking U.S. Assets in the Gulf. And then, as the conflict put shipping to a near halt in the Strait of Hormuz, blah, 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 and then Saudi Arabia's Aramco refinery was shut as a precautionary measure. The refinery is part of an energy complex on the Gulf. So anyway,
When
then,
it produces a 500,000 barrels a day.
right,
Okay.
right,
Okay.
and then this is Iraqi Kurdistan companies, including blah, blah, have halted their production as a precautionary measure in Iraqi Kurdistan. The firms used to export 200,000 barrels of oil per day via pipeline to Turkey's Seyran port. And then meanwhile in Israel, the Netanyahu government has instructed Chevron to temporarily shut down the giant Leviathan gas field. As part of its $35 billion export deal to Egypt, the gas field is in the process of increasing its capacity to around 21 billion cubic meters a year. So anyway, then got the Financial Times lead story. So oil prices soar and stocks slide as Middle East conflict
I
escalates.
want, as we're speaking right now, maybe someone in the chat can check the markets because they just opened 13 minutes ago. So I'm curious where they're going.
That's right. And oil and gas prices surged and global stocks fell on Monday as the widening conflict in the Middle East disrupted energy supplies from the region and threatened to hit the global economy. In the first trading session since the US and Israel launched their airstrikes against Iran on Saturday, Brent crude, the international benchmark, soared as much as 13%. European gas prices jumped 24%. Well, the Europeans at least got lucky in one sense. I mean, winter is coming to an end, but
Yeah.
that's a major increase. I mean, and
Yeah,
energy
but
prices are already high in Europe.
but this is it sounds kind of counterintuitive on the back of what George has said, but this is the time that you start filling up your storages,
Right.
okay? And so, yeah, they may be able to do it at extremely high prices,
So,
okay? I
right.
mean, remember, everyone, energy markets, it's not the price, it is the stability. And we have anything but right now.
That's right. That's right. And now this is very interesting. This three US F-15s
Yes.
came down. They said, in friendly fire incident in Kuwait, pilot safe. This is Central Command issued this press release, and they said, March the 1st, three US F-15 Strike Eagles flying in support of Operation Epic Fury went down over Kuwait, and then so they were mistakenly shot down by Kuwaiti air defenses. All six aircrew ejected safely, have been safely recovered, and are in a stable condition. Kuwait
A
has
little trigger happy there, a little trigger happy.
well,
Yeah.
now this is what I wonder. I mean, whether this is true, because
Mm.
if Iran were responsible, they don't want to acknowledge that Iran did this. Iran shot
Of
them down,
course.
so
Of course.
that's why I put it out there. But it's a convenient scapegoat. Well, these stupid Kuwaitis, they don't know how to use this sophisticated equipment, and it was their fault, rather than admit that Iran shot them down. So I'm not
Uh,
saying that I have no evidence of this, but I
I,
just
I would put
something I want to
I
be
put
open to.
I would put my money on your thesis.
Um, and anyway, so that's that, and then we have this is kind of interesting. We have this joint statement issued by the United States and the various Gulf states. They managed to get them all on board to issue this joint statement on Iran's missile and drone attacks in the region. They started this. They completely unleashed this unprovoked missile and drone attacks on the region.
Here we go. It's kind of reminiscent of Russia's unprovoked attack, right?
That's right. The United States, Bahrain, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. It's so interesting. Egypt is not in that list, but okay. Strongly condemn the Islamic Republic of Iran's indiscriminate and reckless missile and drone attacks against sovereign territories across the region, including Bahrain, Iraq, um, Bahrain, including the Iraqi Kurdistan region, and then Jordan, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, the Kingdom of Saudi, the United Arab Emirates. So it's so interesting. Oman is not among the states issuing this statement. Oman, who was actually involved in those negotiations. Um, these unjustified strikes targeted sovereign territory, endangered civilian populations, and damaged civilian infrastructure. And the Islamic Republic's actions represent a dangerous escalation. Stop escalating dangerously. That violates the sovereignty of multiple states and threatens regional stability. The targeting of civilians and of countries not engaged in hostilities is reckless and destabilizing behavior. We stand united in defense of our citizens, the sovereignty and territory, and reaffirm our right to self defense in the face of these attacks.
Well, and this statement is trying to achieve what?
Well, I think they're just trying to present Iran as the aggressor. I don't.
Well,
I
no,
don't. I don't think it's a very good. It's a very convincing argument, but it's one that's being put out by the U.S., by Israel, and I want to come to that specifically the Europeans, because the Europeans have been shooting their mouths off all weekend, and they deserve a kind of a special.
yeah, they always seem to be on a roll.
Yeah.
There's no course correction there.
No. Sorry, but I think that's the point. They want to present it as if somehow they're Iran is this aggressive. But what Israel does is very interesting, because it first of all it wants to tout how brilliant it is. Hey, we got all these guys. Day one, boom, boom. We got Khamenei. We got the IRGC commander in chief. We got the the Joint Chiefs of Staff leader. We got that. We got the Defense Minister, the National Security Advisor. Boom, we did it. What we are really brilliant. And then next minute, we are the victims of an attack. We are victims. We are victims. Look what they're doing to us. We're being picked
Well,
on.
I don't know.
We're being picked on.
Even a just kind of a dispassionate, view of this here. And the Gulf countries, you invited these military bases. Why? Because at the behest of Israel and directed against Iran. So, what did you think could happen?
Right. Well, that's it.
I'm sorry. I'm not moved.
No. I think that's it. I think you take your life in your hands, and of course, then that should be a message to Alexander Stubb, the Finnish president, who's so proud of Finland being a part of NATO, and Sweden also, and of course the Baltic states and everyone else who think that the NATO provides you with some kind of a blank check.
Oh, really?
They go, hey, well, that's it. We can do what we like because America has made this unconditional commitment to our security, so therefore no one will touch us. Well, you've got bases there. You're part of a hostile military alliance. You are absolutely a target. And then you can complain, hey, some innocent Finns that got killed. Oh, yeah, that's going to happen. Anyone could have predicted at the time when you marched into NATO that innocent Finns are going to get killed.
Mm-hmm. You put a target on your back.
Right.
Not Russia.
Anyway, so that was the statement, and then here's Trump now talking to the Telegraph. So he kind of made a number of these interviews,
and they're each like 5 minutes each. So
that's right. It's a very strange interview. I don't know how much you can get out of anyone in 5 minutes. So Donald Trump has told the Telegraph he's very disappointed in Sir Keir Starmer for blocking him from using Diego Garcia to carry out strikes on Iran. In an exclusive interview, the U.S. president said that the prime minister's initial refusal to let U.S. forces use their Chagos Islands base was unlike anything that had happened between our countries before. Now, we should say that Starmer has now changed his view, and he said that you can use the Diego Garcia base. So Starmer, as usual, has got the worst of all worlds. He's pissed off Trump. Trump's not going to forget that. And he's basically got himself right in the thick of this fight. And once he said, you can use all our bases, what happened? Cyprus was hit. There was a drone attack on Cyprus. So immediately when he said that, Cyprus came under attack. So he's managed to get the worst of all worlds.
Yeah. There's not much integrity with this guy, You don't feel strongly about anything.
Yes.
Do you?
That's right. So yes, this is the Telegraph, and then it says Britain had denied the U.S. permission to conduct strikes from base in Diego Garcia and RAF Fairford, citing international law. However, the Prime Minister relented on Sunday night and said he would allow the U.S. access to Diego Garcia for specific and limited defensive purposes. Mr. Trump says the Kier defensive, yeah.
Okay.
It took far too long to change his mind. I don't like people taking a long time to change their minds, he said. That's probably never happened between our countries before, he told the Telegraph, adding, it sounds like he was worried about the legality. Well, he actually has. I mean, the British did not support the arms airlift to Israel in the 1973 war. The British said you cannot use our airspace for this airlift for Israel, and the British did not support the Grenada venture. Even Thatcher who opposed that. And there have been times in the past, admittedly not many, when the British absolutely just couldn't take it.
Well, this could be a precursor to what we might see later in the week, going into the next week, is that Trump may start pointing fingers. Well, Starmer didn't help me
Oh
out,
yeah,
but okay.
yes,
Yeah.
that's right. And then the row over Diogo Garcia led the president to withdraw his support from the prime minister's controversial Chagos deal. And then Mr. Trump told the Telegraph, all of a sudden Mauritius was claiming ownership. He should have fought it out and owned it, or
Why
make.
is he talking about these things? I mean, and the reason why I say that, George, in all the other interviews, he does the same thing. He's talking about Venezuela.
That's right. But I think this Chagos thing was always going to be a problem because of Diogo Garcia. I mean, the British own the island, but they of course they rent it out to the Americans. But the Americans, they don't really care for that, and so they just don't. It just annoys the Americans that you've now essentially handed over ownership of the islands to Mauritius. And so, but as far as the Americans are concerned, we don't care about Mauritius. We don't deal with Mauritius. We deal with you because the British, rented it out to us. So we're dealing with you. We don't care about Mauritius. We don't care that Mauritius owns it.
I don't want to talk to the landlord.
Yes. And anyway, Mr. Trump suggested Sakir should have always approved American use of Diogo Garcia because Iran was responsible for killing a lot of people from your country. There are people without arms and legs and faces that have been blown up. Iran is 95% of those. Those horrible events were caused by Iran. Mr. Trump said without referring to specific cases. That's yeah, exactly. I don't know what Trump is referring
I don't know what he's talking about.
to. Anyway, Mr. Trump told the Telegraph the Chagos deal. Look, it was a very woke thing. And then referring to Sakir's U-turn on Diego Garcia, he added, "It is useful. It took far too much time. And then an hour after the Prime Minister's announcement on Sunday night that he had given the U.S. permission to use the bases, an Iranian Shahid one-way attack drone hit Britain's RAF Akrotiri base in Cyprus." Well, that seems to be a cause and effect there. I mean,
Cause and effect. Yeah. Crime and punishment. Yeah.
British servicemen received an alert warning of a security threat, urging them to take cover as explosions rang out in the Limassol area where the base is located. And then he says, Mr. Trump said on Sunday that Iran's interim leaders were willing to enter ceasefire talks and revealed operations there had been designed to last 4 weeks or a shorter time if Tehran came to the table to agree on a nuclear deal. So but that obviously goes against other reports, as we discussed a moment ago, which said that it's the U.S. that is pressing for a ceasefire and Iran that's saying we're not interested in the ceasefire. Then here says, we always anticipated 4 weeks, he told the Telegraph. We also anticipated 2 to 3 weeks to take out some of the leadership, but we've taken out all of it in 1 day, so that was well ahead of the schedule. We always viewed it as a 4-week operation. They want to make a deal badly. I said you should have made it a week ago. But of course, this doesn't really make a great deal of sense.
Well, this is fiction. This is pure fiction.
It's fiction. The problem that he has with that argument is that, well, okay, so you took out Iran's leadership, so why aren't they suing for peace?
Yeah.
It's not happening. Yeah, it's clear. We looked at these.
Well,
it's not happening. They're not suing for peace.
Well, what did he use the term, intermediary leadership or
intermediate leadership? Yeah,
Well, okay. Well, then that's
right. But they're not.
There is a leadership. There is a
leadership. There is a process of a temporary leadership, and and clearly they're not giving Trump a break, and so he says, "Well, we've got 4 weeks." Well, that's a very interesting thesis. I'm not sure if things really go along this line with the Strait of Hormuz, these attacks on oil refineries, oil prices spiking, and then stock markets tumbling. I think there's going to be huge pressure on Trump to call it off. I mean, I think that those are serious numbers, and Trump is very aware of serious pressure. You remember when the bond market starts spiking, then he knows he's got a serious problem on his hands, and I think then I think he's going to want to call it off very quick.
A blunder of his own making.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many. He could have listened to us. Okay, there's a lot of other people there,
Yeah.
and say, that's not a good idea because it's going to go south really fast. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yeah.
and the Iranians want to talk. They want to deal. That's all nonsense. Okay. That just bold. Those are bold-faced lies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, because very much like in the situation with Russia, Ukraine, the Iranians want an outcome. Okay, they don't want a deal. They
Right.
want an outcome that deals with their security. They want the end of all sanction. That's good. That's on the table. You
Right.
need an
Right.
off.
No, I think
Okay, let's talk
they
about
got
what you're going to have to pay.
they
What do you have to do?
I think so. I think they're realizing. I mean, at least unless things could always change, of course. But at the moment, they're realizing that Trump is kind of bitten off more than he can chew. He's got a serious problem on his hands, and that he's going to want to find some way out quickly. This is not Venezuela. And I think they're going to make him pay, and I think that's the right,
There you go, George.
the right
You're going
solution.
to have
We're
to
going to make him
pay.
pay.
You pay to get in. You're going to have to
Right.
pay to get out.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. Yeah. If you make a mistake, then you make your adversary pay for that mistake. So, anyway, so then I think Trump then gives an interview with the New York Times, and here we have that Trump says war could last weeks and offers contradictory visions of new regime. And then he says President Trump said on Sunday that the U.S. military intends to sustain its assault on Iran for 4 to 5 weeks if necessary, insisting that it won't be difficult for Israel and the United States to maintain the intensity of the battle, even as he warned of the possibility of more American casualties. In a brief telephone interview with the New York Times, Mr. Trump offered several seemingly contradictory visions of how power might be transferred to a new government, or whether the existing Iranian power structure would run that government or be overthrown. And then among the options he suggested was an outcome similar to what he engineered in Venezuela, in which only the top leader was removed during the American military strike and much of the rest of the government remained in place, but newly willing to work pragmatically with the United States. And then asked how long the United States and Israel could keep up this level of attacks, he responded, well, we intended 4 to 5 weeks. It won't be difficult. We have tremendous amounts of ammunition. We have ammunition stored all over the world in different countries. And then during the roughly 6-minute call, Mr. Trump said he had 3 very good choices about who could lead Iran, although he declined to name them. Earlier on Sunday, Iran's top national security official, Ali Larijani, said that an interim committee would run the country until a successor to the supreme leader was chosen. And the president offered a variety of often inconsistent visions of how a new government could take shape after the targeted killing of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei.
So this wasn't really well thought out, George.
Doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like it. So if you obviously don't have any leadership that's in place. That's never a good move.
Well, I mean, I think
if you don't have anyone that you can install into power.
Again, on the talk shows, what about boots on the ground? And I think it was Lindsey Graham, I may be mistaken here, but he said, yes, we have boots on the ground. It's the Iranian people.
Yes, go ahead. Yes. When pressed on his plans for a transition of power, Mr. Trump said he hoped Iran's elite military forces, including the hardened officers of the IRGC, who have held substantial influence and profited from the existing regime, would simply turn over their weapons to the Iranian populace. Well, that's hopeful. They would really surrender to the people. If you think about it, it was just these same security forces, in particular the Bashi, which organized a local militia that opened fire on street protesters in January and killed thousands. Then he offered a very different model of what the transition power might look like, referring repeatedly to his experience in Venezuela.
Oh
After
God.
he ordered a Delta Force team to seize Mr. Maduro. What we did in Venezuela, I think, is the perfect scenario. Yeah, but I mean, anybody could tell you there's two very different countries. Um,
And on top of it, everyone, when they talk about, when you hear, or you hear reports of the bombing of Iran, the bombing of Tehran, these are missiles. These are not planes in Iranian airspace. Okay, the Israelis, the Americans, and their surrogates are afraid to do that because of the air defenses. So this is they're you know sending in a Delta Force. Well, that Jimmy Carter did that.
right? No, no, that's right. Um, he was vague on the question of who should be in the top ruling position in Iran after the Ayatollah's death, or even who should decide. At first, when asked whom he wanted to lead Iran, he said, I have three very good choices. I won't be revealing them now. Let's get the job done first. So we're still, I think when we talked yesterday, I think it was on Crosstalk, you asked, well, what is it? What exactly does regime change mean? It's a really good, really good question, and we don't know. It seems like on the one hand, he's saying we're going to give all the IRGC will give up all their weapons, hand them over to a mob outside, or maybe he's going to do the Maduro Delcy Rodriguez thing. I mean, these are very, very incompatible scenarios. So it's very strange that he outlines it. You get the impression they haven't really thought this through exactly.
Meanwhile, events are progressing on the ground. Okay, reality is changing as we're speaking right now, and you're thinking about, oh, I have three candidates here. Is George? Anyone knows once the first missile is fired, the best plans can go right out the window. That's it. Look, that's what it looks like right now.
Right, right, right. But anyway, so let's just look at the Europeans. So the Europeans in the aftermath on Saturday did the routine, the familiar routine. Well, we're not really a part of this, but we strongly support our allies, our good friends and allies, Israel and the United States. But we're not a part of it. And anyway, it's these slimy Iranians who refuse to negotiate seriously. We demand Iran get back to the negotiating table. A complete. It's like a surreal world we're living in. It's like, well, you just look at on Twitter and everywhere else. I mean, you got these interviews given by the Omani foreign minister where he detailed exactly what was already agreed to in Geneva. He said we're very close to a deal,
And he
and
said that on
all the
CBS
concessions
News.
Iran has made.
He said that on a Western network.
Yeah,
Okay, I mean,
exactly.
it's
So
not like
face the nation.
somebody made this up. This is like propaganda from someone. No, it was extremely detailed, and a level of detail that you very rarely see on public, national TV shows. He was very, very, very articulate, very calm, and very specific.
Yeah, exactly. So they said, "Oh, Iran is to take these negotiations seriously." But anyway, that was the initial. That was response on Saturday. Naturally, Keir Starmer, by saying, "Well, we're not going to take part, and we're not going to allow our bases to be used for this attack," he immediately came under attack by all the sort of these kind of Looney Tunes. Oh, he's betraying our American friends. The Trump administration will never forget this. Will never forget. This after all the aggravation about Denmark, and Greenland. We still, remember we spent so much time talking about Greenland, Greenland, Greenland. Now, why aren't you joining in with this attack on Iran? So anyway, there was a reversal that took place among the Europeans, and particularly Keir Starmer on Sunday, when they said, "Well, all right, well, in light of Iran's aggression, in light of the Iran's attacks on our friends and allies, we are going to be joining in this this sort of joining in. I mean, again, he hasn't quite committed himself, not exactly on the same level, America and Israel, but we're going to help our good friends, America and Israel.
When did they get to start talking about security guarantees
Oh yeah, that's true.
these people?
But that's a very interesting, because if one asks, why are the Europeans behaving in such a contemptible way, it goes back to Ukraine. They're wedded to Ukraine. This
That's
is
right.
their lifetime project, and they need the Americans. And they are very afraid that if they piss off Trump, and because we looked at that interview to the Telegraph, I'm not happy with Keir Starmer. It took him up too long. I didn't care for his taking all this.
Well, I mean, if they want to be clever, because usually they're cute, but if you want to be clever, why don't you just say the quiet part out loud and just make it very clear? We have the Russia file. You take care of the Iranians. We all know the deal. Iran first, Russia next, and then China. So we're doing our bit. So, Mr. President, please back off a little bit, okay? Because we're doing more when it comes to Ukraine than you are right now.
Right.
That might get you put a target on your back, and who knows what the result would be. But it would be at least more honest.
Well, I think, but the problem they have is that they have very little support. They don't have a lot of support for the war in Ukraine, but there's very little
Right.
support in Europe for this onslaught on Iran. So they're doing their best to keep in with Trump, while at the same time just looking at this real opposition in Europe to starting yet again another war in the Middle East, another war of choice in the Middle East. After all
Yeah.
the talk about Iraq, all the talk about weapons of mass destruction, we were lied to about the weapons of mass destruction. And now you've got another set of lies to start another
But
war.
yeah, remember, it wasn't too long ago, when Trump made his comment about, the European quote unquote contribution to Afghanistan and Iraq. So you want to repeat that. You want to send your boys to die, okay? So we can have the same conversation all over again. You never should have gotten involved in it in the first place. So shame on you. And you're the people responsible.
Yeah,
Don't
that's right.
don't give me crocodile tears about your fallen soldiers. You sent them there.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And yeah, that's right. But anyway, so here was statement, the statement of the joint E3. The
Oh wow.
E3 comprises the UK, France, and Germany. This is the gang that was on the JCPOA. So this was they signed the JCPOA. Yeah, they seem to have forgotten that as they
Yes.
they go on about Iran must negotiate seriously about its
Oh yeah.
nuclear missiles and
Yeah, the guilty pleasures of forgetfulness. Here
that's
we
right. You
go.
think, hey, you negotiated that JCPOA. Now apparently they all of that is just forgotten. Anyway, E3 leaders are appalled by the indiscriminate and disproportionate missile attacks launched by Iran against countries in the region, including those who were not involved in the initial U.S. and Israeli military operation. Oh, the military operation. So here we have missile attacks, and you have U.S. and Israeli military operations. So it's an operation. It's like an operation. What happens in a hospital.
That's
Surgery. It's an operation. It's not an attack. It's an operation. Iran's reckless attacks it's the second time you use the word attack, have targeted our close allies and are threatening our service personnel and our civilians across the region. We call on Iran to stop these reckless attacks immediately, third time. We will take steps to defend our interests and those of our allies in the region, potentially through enabling necessary and proportionate defensive action to destroy Iran's capability to fire missiles and drones at their
all
source.
right. Oh yeah. Well, hold my beer, okay?
We have agreed to work together with the US and allies in the region on this matter. Oh, good for you. And then here was Starmer. He also issued his own separate statement. And he says, over the last 2 days, Iran has launched sustained attacks across the region at countries who do not attack them. They've hit airports and hotels where British citizens are staying. This is clearly a dangerous situation. We have at least 200,000 British citizens in the region, residents, families on holiday, and those in transit. Well, maybe you should have taken this up with your American friends and
Well,
put
I mean,
pressure on them not to start this.
in the civilian infrastructure, quote unquote, there are reports that these, like in hotels, these are CIA station centers. Interestingly, it's come through. I can't confirm it, but I've heard it repeated over and over again. Is that the investment firm of Jared Kushner has been hit? Okay, so talk about well, the Israelis, they're amazing about intelligence and all that. Well, I guess the Iranians know where Jared keeps his office in this. Okay, all right, that'll fix your wagon. Okay,
um, um,
which is, I guess, a legitimate target.
I would think. I would think.
I would think.
Our decision that the UK would not be involved with the strikes on Iran was deliberate, not least because we believe that the best way forward for the region and for the world is a negotiated settlement. One in
Yeah,
which
they
Iran.
did. The Iranians did too. Yeah.
Right, exactly. There's one in which Iran agrees to give up any aspirations to develop a nuclear weapon, which they've always said. But in any case, the deal that was on the table was far, far more extensive than the JCPOA that Britain signed on to. You signed on to.
You guys negotiated it.
Right. This is a far more extensive concessions that Iran was willing to make, and that you thought was insufficient. And then he said, but Iran is striking British interests nonetheless and putting British people at huge risk, along with our allies across the region.
Then why don't you just leave the region if you're so afraid? Okay, go. Because that's you have to remember, in the countries that are on the receiving end of this, they have very large Shia populations. Okay,
Right.
they'd like to see the backside of these people. Okay,
Right. That's right.
talk about regime changes. There's a lot of changes going on in these Gulf monarchies. Believe me, and that's going to be one of the lasting legacies of this. I don't know how it's going to play out. No one does. But that's going to be influenced as well. How they do business with the outside world, with the Americans, with the British, et cetera, et cetera. Everything is in flux right now.
Yeah. And our partners in the Gulf have asked us to do more to defend them. It is my duty to protect British lives. And then we have British jets in the air as part of coordinated defensive operations, which have already successfully intercepted Iranian strikes. But the only way to stop the threat is to destroy the missiles at source in their storage depots or the launchers which used to fire the missiles. The United States has requested permission to use British bases for that specific and limited defensive purpose. We have taken the decision to accept this request to prevent Iran firing missiles across the region, killing innocent civilians, putting British lives at risk. So on. The basis of our decision is the collective self-defense of long-standing friends and allies and protecting British lives.
Yeah, we've accepted this request. No, that's just more BS. No, you were told. No uncertain terms. Because they got you by the short and curlies. Okay, you will do this. Yes, sir.
Right, that's right. That is in accordance with international law. You just gotta make stuff up about international law, and we are publishing a summary of our legal advice. That summary is an absolute joke. I mean, it's just a lot of pablum, nothing, absolutely nothing.
Oh, very much like the dossier to go into the war against Iraq.
But however, he says we are not joining these strikes. Well, why not? I mean, you said how terrible what Iran is doing, and then so why aren't you joining in these strikes? We are not joining these strikes. So that's what I mean. He manages to piss everybody off. I mean, that shows the genius of the man.
He's really good at that. It's probably his only talent.
It is his talent. Okay.
It is a talent. Yeah, it's
It really is.
unique.
Yeah, it is. But we will continue with our defensive actions in the region, and we will also bring experts from Ukraine together with our own experts to help Gulf partners shoot down Iranian drones attacking them.
I wonder if he signed that wearing his now very famous bikini. Okay, yeah,
our
that's about how much
experts, yes.
respect I have.
Who are these experts from Ukraine? Are they Ukrainians? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're bringing experts from Ukraine.
Yeah,
Zelensky,
how's it going there?
I'm
How's,
on the case.
yeah, how's that going for Ukraine?
Yeah, and then he says, "I want to be very clear. We all remember the mistakes of Iraq." Oh, this is the moment. Hexet was doing all this thing. Oh,
Yeah,
we're not making the mistakes we did in the past. Oh, no, those were vague missions without clear purpose. This is unlike our mission, which has a very clear, deliberate purpose. So when somebody asks him what exactly is the purpose, he tells them to shut up and stop asking questions. So that's his that's mode. Um, and we have learned those lessons. Great. We were not involved in
can you enumerate what those lessons were, please, Mister Secretary? No, you
That's
won't.
right. That's right. We were not involved in those initial strikes on Iran, and we will not join offensive action now. But Iran is pursuing a scorched earth strategy, so we are supporting the collective self defense of our allies and our people in the region because that is our duty to the British people. So that was him. And then Merz, who's, we always have a very high opinion of him because he's not the worst leader in German history.
Yes,
So,
right.
like, when you've got that, when you've already got that in the bank, well, at least I'm not the worst German leader in history. Then basically you can do what you like. I mean,
Yes, he has I think
that
he's been given an unfair handicap. But anyway, yeah.
exactly. He says Germany is committed to Israel's security, did not take part in strikes on Iran, and then he said Germany is committed to Israel's security, adding that it is coordinating closely with the United States, Israel, and partners in the region. We remain committed to peace and security in the region and to Israel's security. Germany calls on Iran to cease military strikes against Israel and other partners in the region. It's very strange. I mean, most people were under the impression that Israel had launched attacks on Iran, but apparently, according to Merz, Germany calls on Iran to cease strikes against Israel. So that's kind of an odd, I guess Meretz has a very different different set of lenses through which he sees the world.
Yeah.
I mean, normally we say, well, who started this? Who launched the attacks? And then and then we look on who responded. But
Well,
no,
he never
Iran
tires of talking.
military strikes.
Never talks about Russia's attack. Okay, never ceases to talk about that.
No,
Okay.
no. The leadership in Tehran must end the violence against its own people and return to a negotiated solution. And then Merz says Germany has not participated in the strikes against Iranian targets. So that's that's this bizarre, I guess the sort of situation among the Europeans that they now have their interpretation of what's going on, that Iran is the aggressor. Iran started this, and it's just launching these indiscriminate attacks on our friends and allies and partners in the region. What makes it particularly odd is that Iran did say in all the weeks leading up to this that if you launch this attack on us, there are going to be no restraints. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's a clear warning. They said that we're going to take this seriously. In which case, the onus is on those who decided that they're going to have an easy win, when it was obvious that there was not going to be an easy win.
Well, the framing I'm glad you did this because it just shows the usual dishonesty and lack of any kind of creativity. I mean,
Right.
I could probably come up with some better stupid excuses than they've been able to collectively. But it's never pointed out by the Trump administration, by the British, the Europeans, certainly not the Israelis, is that you've put Iran into an existential position. This for Iran, it is to be or not to be.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't get more stark than that. Trump can say, "Well, all right, maybe it didn't work out so well. Let's just pull it back, and hopefully by the end of my administration, we can do it again, or whatever." Okay, but for the Iranians to say, "No," I mean, they started this. We made it clear that we're going to go through to it, and they're going to go through with this to the end. Okay. We have the 12-day war of last year, all of the machinations associated with that. And the Israeli officials making it very clear that this wasn't over. This was just a lull. So Iran did its best, and looks like so far its game plan is working out. They're going to go. They want to see the end of American influence in the Gulf. Now I know that's a really huge, tall order. Okay, but that's why, because their security is threatened, and the very sovereignty of their country is threatened. When you have someone like Trump, well, I have three individuals in mind. I mean, they're not. With that kind of mindset, you're not interested in negotiating, and the Iranians know that. Okay,
Right.
and so like I said at the very beginning, what's kind of surprised me is that the focus on these Gulf countries with all these American military bases surrounding Iran. Why are they doing that? Is it because they hate Arabs? No, that's the most immediate security threat. Okay,
Right, but I
With-
think
and obviously they're not forgetting about Israel, but it's much more coordinated, and it's across a huge battle space.
right, but that's really the if one were to think about, okay, what is each side trying to accomplish? I mean, basically, U.S., Israel. Israel wants the destruction of the country. I mean, chaos
Right.
and the destruction. They're not interested in regime change. They want basically destroy this country. Um, and if there's chaos, that's great. That basically America is now sucked in, for a generation of wars in the Middle East. That's Israel's plan. That's Israel's plan all along. We get America to fight our wars for us. So that's what they're doing. Um, the U.S. plan, I think, is regime change without having figured out what that means.
Means.
But the Iranian plan, I think, is to inflict pain on their attackers. I mean, they're not really doing a kind of military. They're not doing military strategy. They're essentially doing inflict pain. That's a different way of fighting a war, because then this isn't going to be, well, you would take this base or that base or whatever.
Yeah. Right.
Boom, we're going to make you pay. We're going to have Strait of Hormuz, oil prices, gas prices. We're going to absolutely create a disaster for you everywhere. And then we're going to force you to make a decision as to where you want to go, because then you're facing a serious economic and
And,
financial crisis, and I think
and
that's
what
the strategy.
and George is right. And what does that mean? Okay, because what we've heard is that everything is one direction. We run up to the 12-day war, run up to this one, is what Iran has to do. It has to do this and this and this. And now the Iranians are going to say, no, 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 no. If you want negotiations, you have to do
Right.
this,
Right.
this, and this. And that's what gives it, for the first time, we'll have a sense of equilibrium.
Right.
And having every conflict comes to an end, everyone. Okay, as much as Israel would like to turn this into a generational one, the Iranians are not interested in that, and politically, no American leadership can do that now. In light of Iraq and Afghanistan, but and a political rhetoric that we heard for 10 years from Donald Trump being against these wars. Okay, so that's what we have to look at. That's what we have to focus in on. There are a lot of people pining, they only got 3 days left. And it's like 5.5, 5 days and 6 hours. And George and I are not going to play that game because we don't know. We don't know. But I can tell you, if any meaningful conversations or negotiations are to be started or even contemplated, Iran is going to have its list, and it's going to be a flipped script.
Yeah.
Okay, this is what we demand, and we can talk to you about it. Let's say it's the most not the we'll start out maximalist, but there's room for
Right.
negotiations here. But it's going to be on you.
Right.
It's
No,
going to flip.
that's right. Exactly. They're gonna demand from the United States some serious concessions, and therefore,
Right.
absolutely, sanctions are going to be, lifting of sanctions is going to be on the table. We don't know in the discussions with Oman, the one or in Geneva, mediated by Oman, whether there was a serious discussion about sanctions. All we heard from Oman was that, hey, these are the concessions Iran was really willing to make. So we don't even know whether the sanctions were being the lifting of sanctions was being discussed. Now, I think absolutely Iran is going to demand the lifting of sanctions. So at least some lifting of sanctions, because that'll be the minimum. We're not just going to go back to the way it was before. So one other thing I want to show you is because, as I mentioned it earlier, these phone conversations that took place today between Putin and the leaders of Qatar and the UAE. And here it's uh, kind of interesting. This is just, I'm going by the Kremlin readout. And so here's the Qatar during a telephone conversation between President Putin and the Emir of the state of Qatar. The focus was on the acute crisis in the Middle East caused by the American-Israeli aggression against Iran. So this is very pointed. Qatar obviously wanted help from Russia with Iran. Hey, use your influence with Iran to help us. But the readout, American-Israeli aggression against Iran. This flagrant violation of international law has led to grave and tragic consequences for the Iranian people. Mutual concern was expressed about the risks of the conflict escalating and the danger of involving third countries. At the
Mhm.
same time, the hope was expressed that Iran's retaliatory actions will not harm civilians or civilian infrastructure in neighboring countries, including Qatar. And then the Emir of Qatar expressed gratitude for the support of regional states in the current difficult situation. He emphasized that cooperation with Russia in various sectors remained their priority. A mutual hope was expressed for a speedy de escalation of the conflict and a return to political and diplomatic methods of resolving differences based on the principles of mutual respect and equality. And then we'll continue with this dialogue. So basically, nothing. Russia gave nothing to Qatar. And then the same thing with the UAE president. And here we have the unprecedented tragic events in the Middle East were discussed in the context of the American Israeli aggression against Iran and Tehran's harsh retaliatory actions. Both sides emphasized the need for a swift ceasefire and a return to the political and diplomatic process. Vladimir Putin noted that the Russian side has done much to facilitate a peaceful resolution of the situation surrounding the Iranian nuclear program and to find mutually acceptable compromises. The UAE also played an active role in the process. However, these efforts were disrupted by an unprovoked act of armed aggression against a sovereign state, a UN member state, in violation of the fundamental principles of international law. The Russian president thanked Mohammed bin Zayed for his efforts to
Good
assist,
luck. Good
Russian
luck.
citizens in the Emirates, including numerous tourists. And then the UAE president emphasized that Iranian retaliatory strikes have directly affected the Emirates, causing damage to the country and threatening civilians. He stated that such strikes are being carried out despite the fact that the UAE territory is not being used as a springboard for attacks on Iran and are therefore completely unjustified. Vladimir Putin, for his part, expressed his willingness to convey these signals to Tehran and, in general, to provide all possible assistance to stabilize the overall situation in the region. So basically, saying, yeah, this is all aggression against Iran. Well, very sorry that these consequences. Like to help, but them's the breaks.
Well,
And
yeah, and it's thanks for the call. I appreciate it. It's good to always catch up, but you directed your call to the wrong guy.
exactly. I mean, I think probably. I don't know why he said those very words in the phone conversation, but I'm sure the implication was that maybe he did say it is not in the readout. But yeah, don't come to us. If you have this problem, and sympathize with you with this problem, then take it up with others, those who started this whole thing. What's it got to do with us? We didn't have anything to do with it. So now you want us to put some sort of pressure on Iran. Iran is being under attack. What are we supposed to do?
Yeah, he might have even said, "Yeah, I can sympathize. We've been dealing with these Americans too." And it's nutty.
That's right. It's an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Let's exchange notes at another time about that. Okay.
right, right, exactly. Anyway, let's go to our locals page. Our Gaggle locals page. These are the people who worry about the dogs. They know that the dogs, you know, start getting very anxious at this time of the year about the tip jar. This is the tax season is upon us, and the dogs worry a lot about taxes, and they get they pay taxes up the wazoo, and so they're thinking in terms of, well, if we're hit for all these taxes, what's in the tip jar? Anyway, so the first question from our good friend, yeah, exactly, tax up the wazoo. Um, so our first question from our good friend Cynthia. Cynthia asks, Professor Morandi said he has had to isolate himself from his family. Do you think the U.S. and Israel are ruthless and callous enough to carry out decapitation strikes against him and other high-profile Iranian scholars and journalists as they have
Of-
against Iranian political and military leadership? The answer is yes. I have
Yes.
no hesitation saying they are indeed ruthless
Well,
and callous
George,
enough to attack Professor Morandi. Yep, go on.
how many children? How many children were killed in that school? Last number was
I
151
don't know
or
exactly,
something.
but it's
Yeah,
very high.
if they're willing to kill children, yeah. And I mean, how many 280 journalists have been killed in Gaza? Yeah, yeah. They would. The guy that presses the button on that one, will want a medal for it.
Yes,
Okay,
right.
that's how they feel about journalists. That's how they feel about anyone speaking against them. Okay, this is a crucible. This is an amazing moment that we're all living in. It's been building up. People like myself and George, who've been warning about this. Okay, out in the wilderness, but it's all coming to fruition. This is the type of regime you're dealing with.
Right.
Okay, and what we've seen is that we've seen the Israelization of American foreign policy, of European foreign policy. I mean, framing Iran as the victim in this. This is what Israel does. Okay.
That's right. That's right. And it's very interesting because if it is true that former President Ahmadinejad has been killed, obviously he was targeted. We know he was targeted because Axios broke the story before we had heard anything about his supposedly being dead. That's a war crime by any definition. Ahmadinejad is a retired former president. He's a civilian. He has no relation whatever to the command and control system in Iran. So he has nothing. He has nothing. He has no leadership role at all. He's not involved in any military decision making. So therefore, this was an attack on a civilian who has nothing to do. Since there's no legitimate wartime objective that was accomplished by killing him, then that's a war crime. That is, by any definition, that's a war crime to target him entirely vindictively. That just to kill him for nothing. There's no immediate threat at all. He was president many years ago. He has no prospect of ever returning to power. This was a war crime. So if you're going to do that, if you can kill Ahmadinejad, absolutely would go after Morandi, because Morandi is all the time on media, is being interviewed. He has a very visible presence. If you think Ahmadinejad is a threat, absolutely Israel would regard Morandi as a threat.
Yeah. I'm in communication with him. I've just told him to be keep your head down, but keep your voice clear, okay?
Right.
Because
Right.
don't be again. That's the worst thing is to be intimidated by thuggery like this,
Yes.
okay?
Right.
And he has the same kind of spirit that the supreme leader. I mean, sacrifice is very much part of their culture, but very much part of Shia culture and religion. So
Right.
a lot of brave people, very
Right,
brave people.
right, right. That's right. Then we have our good friend Marty. He's posted a meme of someone. I have to plead ignorance. The picture's a little small, and I can't quite figure out who that is. I can see later on, then the picture of Apple, but I can't make out who. Anyway, Dan Rock, welcome. Thank you very much for your generosity. And then Dan Rock also answers Cynthia's question about Morandi. It says, of course they are, as we said, they massacred scientists and their families, exactly, and neighbors, as well as alleged girls' elementary school. Yeah, that's right. And then here's a picture also from Marty, the negotiators, Tweedledum and Tweedledee, the negotiators being Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff. One has to say, Witkoff's reputation has gone down the toilet. I don't think it's exactly his fault. I mean, it's his boss. I mean, he just does whatever the boss wants him to do. I mean, it's his boss who has been erratic. I mean, it's not. I mean, he Witkoff didn't really do anything. He goes into negotiations thinking he's supposed to negotiate one thing. Then it turns out that those negotiations weren't being taken seriously. Then he goes and negotiates something else that also isn't being taken seriously. So he's just a kind of hapless buffoon. Should go back to real estate or whatever it is that
Well,
he's
they
quite
should
good
go
at.
back. He should go back to real estate. I think when everything is said and done, that's exactly what Jared and Steve have been doing the entire time. They're doing their real estate deals.
Right.
Okay, this is just kind of like the president called me, wants us to go over a meeting, talk to the Omani. Okay, let's go over there. Okay, and then they have their business meetings in the evening in the hotel lobby.
Right.
Okay, they're
Right.
there for money, and they're representing people. Other very, very rich people. I mean, the Trump administration is going to the bank. Everybody, if it's the tech bros or it's real estate in the Middle East, that's their focus. They probably should get their focus on surviving this storm. Sorry to
Right.
say that, but that's what it
Right.
is.
That's right. And then Dan Rock says all the U.S. bases in the Gulf, in Iran, no different to NATO in Ukraine, Georgia, Moldova, etc. No, and all the NATO bases everywhere, legitimate targets, which means civilians are going to get hit. And and then again, Marty, very very generous of you. Thank you so much. Um, so where are we? Do you think, Peter? We got two
Well,
minutes.
yeah, I mean,
Um,
let's pick up where we left off yesterday.
mhm,
Um, collating everything together. One of the things that I get very disgruntled by is non-military people talking about military things, and
yeah,
they muddy the waters a
yeah,
lot.
absolutely.
Okay, it's very, very unhelpful. I always plead my lack of no. I'm not an expert in this. I don't
Hmm.
know. Okay,
Hmm.
but collating everything together.
Right,
Um, I think that they were thinking more along the lines of a 4-day war and not a 4-week war. Okay.
right,
I think right now, considering Trump's really erratic 5-minute interviews with the major broadsheets, I have the impression that the administration is in panic. They don't know what to do. Um, Pete Hegseth, just, just don't get in front of a camera. I mean, you just do damage to yourself. Okay.
right.
Um, I don't know, but this thing has gone south. It's gone south really fast. I think, we'll always forever forth worth have to talk about, well, what do you mean by regime change? Because,
Right. No, I think that's exactly it. And it's what is peculiar about Trump is that he's doing these interviews, these 5-minute interviews, which is kind of ridiculous, but he's not doing a kind of an address before the American people. which is what you normally do. I mean, you've now undertaken a major military operation. I mean, this is serious business. You know, Iraq in 2003. Okay, that was an invasion, and you put boots on the ground. But nonetheless, Iraq was tiny compared to Iran. Iran's a huge country, 93 million, so it's almost 4 times the size in population as Iraq, and much bigger in territory. You've undertaken this. You don't have any boots on the ground. You don't have any real means of delivering on your regime change plan. But even then, Bush made speeches before the American people. Libya, Obama made his ridiculous address before the American people. He hasn't done that. What he did was in that very strange
8-minute video. Yeah.
8-minute video wearing a hat for some reason. I mean, which itself is very odd for a president to deliver a major address wearing a hat. And so it's very, very odd, and particularly when he gives these interviews, it doesn't look like he seems to has any plan. Oh, it's a regime change. Oh, the people are going to come out into the street, and the IRGC is going to give up their weapons. Where in what world does that ever happen? The government is just going to give up their weapon. Has the IRGC shown itself in the past to be willing to give up their weapons? I don't think so. So
Well, I mean, there's also the important issue of, and you've already rightly pointed out, is that the Israelis want a long and drawn out
well,
war.
that's another aspect.
They
Yeah.
want to keep the Americans there. So it's really everyone. This is the reality check. It's not, will at what point will the Iranians submit to some kind of talks? Okay, we've already talked about that. No, they have
Right.
this is a
Right.
flip script. But Israel, they've invested way too much in this guy and in
Right.
this endeavor. They're not going to. All right, you're not doing great, but we're not going to let go because we're not going to
No.
get this moment again. And if there are negotiations and the script is flipped, and Israel's not going to have the sway that it has had for decades. So this is a critical point, and I think that's Trump is more worried about that probably more than anything. And then we haven't even begun to talk about the domestic implications of
Right.
this.
That's right. But this was what Trita Parsi was saying. Gave an interesting interview to Mario Nafwal, who's a kind of a sidekick of Elon Musk. But he gave this interview and he said, I Trita Parsi, expert as that I am on Iran, am stunned by what Trump did. I was not expecting this. I did not think Trump would embrace the Israel agenda wholeheartedly, just adopt the Israel agenda. I mean, I thought that Israel would strike, America would help Israel out, just like they did last June. But I wasn't expecting America just simply to take over Israel's war and thereby absolutely triggering this chaos throughout the Middle East and the Gulf region. It's just mind-boggling why Trump has done this, and why I think he could well be threatening his presidency and indeed his survival in office. Because if this does escalate, and the way things are going, if it escalates, he's not going to complete his term. There's no way, because he is now showing a kind of serious want of judgment. And once they, people around him say this man is dangerous, he has a want of judgment. We can't have his finger on the nuclear trigger. Then you're gone.
Well, I mean, and also
not just his presidency, his popularity that's at stake. His own survival in office could be at stake.
well, and this is when the rats start abandoning ship.
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
it was his plan.
That's
That's why it's not we. The next few days, the next week or so, I think are obviously critical. But if it continues to go south, then there's going to be talk of the 25th Amendment.
No, absolutely. And we got one more comment from a Gaggler, a very good friend, Anne Marie. So happy Anne Marie is able to join us. Anne Marie says, it seems, at least on X, that Israel is heavily bombing Tehran right now. Okay. But not so much the other way around. Are the Iranians keeping some restraint so far in attacking Israel? If so, why? Since it seems that Israel wanted to start this war all along. Well, that's something we've kind of looked at before. I mean, I think Iran does seem to be holding back. Um, at the moment, I mean, obviously, what they did was to retaliate against American bases and American interests. But I would think that they will get around to if they what we don't know exactly what Iran has in its tank, but I would imagine they are going to target Israel.
Oh, obviously, well, I
Within the
think
next day or so.
the my best sources that I truly trust, they just want to whittle down air defenses, the Israeli ones and the American ones. Everybody likes to boast about we have a new weapon and all that. I'm not going to go there. But sending these very cheap drones and missiles just to get the attention of, just watch them deplete their Patriot missiles. Okay, and that's when you get down to business here. That's how it's been explained to me, and makes perfect sense to me. But who's in the driver's seat? It's Iran. Who's running the clock? It's Iran. Okay, and the initiative that Trump and everyone else thought that they had, they lost it immediately. Okay, they don't have the initiative and they don't have the momentum. Okay, so this is what makes it very much in flux, very dangerous, and escalation and spreading out. That's what we're going to be watching, because that's what's happening.
Right, right. That's right, and particularly so when you haven't, the United States and Israel really haven't really set out some kind of an end game, anything that's a possible kind of end game. Well, hey, these and these are the terms that you need to agree to, and therefore, if you agree to them, we can do it. If you just simply say regime change, that is so nebulous.
But there's no conversation there. That's not
Yeah,
a conversation.
right. Exactly. That's why there can't really be any talks. I mean, so when these Europeans talk about, oh, Iran needs to get back to the negotiating table, there's nothing to negotiate. I mean, we had negotiations. We've had negotiations after negotiations after negotiations. Before that, we had an agreement. All of that has been thrown into the waste paper basket. So to keep demanding that Iran has to go back to negotiations, it's just so absolutely ridiculous. So if you don't have any kind of a serious agenda, serious set of objectives to achieve, then you've got a real problem on your hands. And all Iran has to do is to inflict as much pain as possible on the United States, on Israel, to the point when there are going to be serious economic pressures on Washington. You need to call it off, because you're threatening to tank the American economy and the world economy.
And empires hate humiliation.
Right.
And that's the pain that George is talking about. It's humiliation after humiliation. The hopelessness of the situation is that who was running the negotiations, so-called negotiation? It's the Israelis. It wasn't the Americans. Okay, they weren't running it. Okay, they do not see Iran as a legitimate country. I mean, they can't even in their head even come to the terms. So we might have to deal with their demands. That never enters their mind. That's how hopeless this is, and the Iranians know that. They know that.
That's right. That's right.
And the most blunderous thing about it is that they got Trump to do it.
That's exactly that's the
amazing,
most stunning aspect of it. Anyway, Anne Marie, thank you so much for your generosity. Really appreciate it. Anyway, our time is up, Peter. It's been a lot of fun, so to speak. Turns out we did have something to talk about. We thought we'd talking about movies, who's going to win the Oscars, that kind of thing. But we had something to talk about. Anyway, well, obviously we're going to be watching developments. So thank you very much, everybody who joined us. Thank you for all your questions and comments, and above all for your contributions. The dogs, they're very worried. They're concerned about the state of the world economy. That's going to affect them very much. So we'll be back same time next Monday, and please join me for my solo live stream tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, all the best. Goodbye. See you.